What is up, everyone, and Ride Warriors, and whatever you call the folks who watch your channel here, Alex? So we're doing something a little bit different here. Andy is on his way back from on the COASTER-net side of things, whether you're watching on COASTER-net or South Coasters. Andy Rabarchuk is on his way back from Florida. And
Yes,
meanwhile, I've got my suitcase and stack of clothing and everything, a bunch of roller coaster t-shirts over here, because 1 week from now, I will be over in Sweden and getting ready to meet up with you in Poland, Alex. So we've
absolutely,
got
mate.
Alex Baker from South Coasters watching on
Evening, folks.
Coast here. And this is the big Europe trip that I've been talking about over on CoasterNet for a number of years now. Scandinavia, Sweden, Finland, Poland, Norway, and Denmark. And Alex, you're going to be joining us for pretty much the entire thing, save a day or two. So,
Yeah, I am,
uh,
mate. It's a long time in the making, this one for you, I guess. With I'm sure you probably would have tried to get back to Europe a bit sooner if it wasn't for COVID and everything like that. But yeah, probably. What was it? 2019 last time you were over this one? Probably. Was it 2018? Maybe.
yeah, yeah,
Been a
2019
while, right? It's
was
been a
when we
while since that last
Germany,
trip you did.
Belgium, Netherlands. Yeah. So, we're coming back finally. This is the trip that originally we wanted to do in 2021.
Yeah.
And obviously COVID pushed that a couple of years.
Yep.
So here we are. It still doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel real that a week from now I'll be walking around Old Town Stockholm. It feels like just a couple of days ago we're booking flights and everything over there,
Yeah.
which is kind of like the first big step into making it happen. You buy the trip over and the trip home, and then you figure it out from there. So we're just gonna go kind of day by day here, and go through the different parks we're going to visit, and
Yeah. I
what we're
think that's a
looking
good.
forward to. And you've been to a couple of these parks already, so you'll
I
be able
have
to kind
only
of
the
give
first
what
couple in Poland,
experiences.
but yeah, the most of the trip's going to be brand new for me as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that. I
Yeah.
will say as well before we get started, kind of commiserations to Aunt Sue, who was going to be doing the trip with you, Danny, but unfortunately couldn't make the trip, which is kind of why I'm doing the
Yeah.
whole trip now with you. But yeah, it's an absolute shame for her that she's had to miss out on this because I know she was looking forward to it too. So yeah,
Yeah, she will be missed, but hopefully we have a good time here and we'll be able to go back very, very soon. Like you said, you were going to join for Poland and Finland only and then kind of go back
yeah,
home, but with her spot opening up, you're able to jump in, and now you'll be going through the rest of Scandinavia, with us and the coaster crew. So, what do you say we jump right into sort of the itinerary here?
yeah,
So obviously, well, you're coming over from England, and you'll
I
be
am.
meeting up with me in Poland. I'll be flying into Stockholm originally, since that's where the group part of the trip ends. I'll be doing a day just around Stockholm, not planning to do any parks. And then the next day we'll be dropping down into Poland and spend a the better part of a day just going around Poland. But the first park we're actually planning on going to is so is it Legendia? How do
I
we
say
pronounce? We're going to
Legendia.
mispronounce.
I always say
Okay.
Legendia. I'm not saying I'm right, but I say Legendia. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll find out, right? So I mean, this is a smaller park, right? I mean, I don't think we plan on spending more than maybe a couple of hours here, but they do have a couple of coasters. They have a dark shooter ride, supposedly, that's supposed to be pretty decent. But I mean, the big highlight ride here, really maybe the only real reason that people like us would be going to this park, is Lech Coaster, right? And
yeah.
this is one that you really enjoy.
It is. It's a really good ride. It's kind of got a little bit of everything. Good forces, good airtime, good drop, good speed. Feels like it runs a bit too fast. I've spoken to people before who
Oh,
said
it's one of
it's
those.
kind of meant to trim you, I think, on the top of the hill, and it just doesn't. And then yeah, it feels bonkers when it's running the potential. Yeah, it's a pretty special ride. It's certainly it pretty much is the reason to go to Legendia, right? What's the other one there?
Yeah,
It's a little
I
Suke
mean,
looping coasters, the other thing there, and there's Icon Galaxy.
yep.
So yeah, you're going for Let Coaster, and No bones about that.
Yeah, and it's one of these new Vekoma coasters, and there's more and more of them. What are they calling them? Bermuda Blitzes or something like
Yeah,
that.
so I think that this was
At
the
one point, they
original
were calling them
layout.
Top Guns or
Yeah.
something. But
I think they're all the different types of layout, right? So they've kind of got ones you can buy out of the catalog. So you could
I think so.
like ask for a Bermuda Blitz and you'd get Let Coaster, or you ask for a Top Gun and you get that launch thing they've just done in China. So yeah, but this
Yeah.
this was
Okay.
kind of the first of the slightly more extreme ones they did, because I think it came shortly after another coaster we'll probably talk about shortly, after they'd done Formula at Energylandia, not far down the road. But yeah, Let Coaster is good. You'll enjoy it, no doubt.
It looks like my type of ride, one of those balls to the wall, super intense rides that doesn't really let up. Very compact, rapid fire. Very Maverick-esque.
Yeah,
And it seems to be the theme of these new Vekoma style coasters. And like you said, there's a bunch more right down the road, which is the another park that will probably go to the same day and then the next
yep,
day later. And I guess that's a good segue right into Energylandia, where they have not one but two of these style Vekoma coasters. They've got Formula,
yep.
which is the shorter one, and a single launch one, but then the newer one, which is much bigger. And I have you ridden Abyssus?
Yeah, I rode it kind of the first year it
Yeah.
was open, and it's another
Okay.
one that's a great ride. I think it's one of those that suffers a little bit by being right next to Zadra in the same park, because you ride Zadra and then you're like, I'll ride Abyssus, and then you're like, which one should I ride again? And you kind of find yourself going back to Zadra. So I'm actually looking forward to getting on
Ah,
Abyssus again, and kind of giving it a bit more of a fair shake this time, because yeah, I think I was expecting a little bit more from it, I'll be honest, last time. And a lot of the theming wasn't finished in that area of the park yet. So I'm also looking forward to seeing if they
okay.
finished that off as well, because it's in that sort of Aqualantis area where they've got a Vekoma family boomerang, and they've got one of the the Zampola Disco. I'm not going to call that a coaster
Okay.
because I don't count them, but one of those, which is it's all quite nicely themed. But
Yeah,
when I
they've
went,
had a
it only just
couple of
opened, so
years. Hopefully they finish that off. It sounds like the Cedar Point problem, where you've got Maverick and Steel Vengeance right next to each other a little bit. So
well,
Hyperion's at the front of the park, right? Because
it
I
is
think
that's
if I
kind
were
of
to
the
pick
only
out the
thing that sort
four
of
coasters,
splits the park up. Sorry, I think we might have a bit of a delay on here, mate.
because those are the four that are on my list from that park. I've got Zadra, Hyperion, Abyssus, and Formula, kind of in that order too.
Yeah,
I think from most anticipated to least from those four, and I feel like Lek kind of slides somewhere in between them.
yeah, I think that's a fair shout as well. And most people probably would have them in that order. I'd be surprised if you came. Well, I mean, Zadra and Hyperion, some people will interchange, right? So it'd be interesting to see which one of those you actually prefer. I mean, I'm the big Zadra guy, right? So I yeah, I
Oh
can't
yeah.
say enough good things about Zadra. But Hyperion again, that's another one that I'm looking forward to riding more, because I only got a couple of rides on that last time I was there. And I really enjoyed that too. Some people have said it's a bit rough, or got a bit of a rattle or a shake on sort of the wing seats near the back, but I didn't really notice that last time. So yeah,
Ah.
looking forward to riding that again. Um,
Okay.
in terms of the two Vekoma launches, yeah, like you say, Abyssus is by far the bigger ride, but some people kind of prefer the sort of punchiness of Formula, because it's
Okay.
almost a little bit more intense Formula, but it's obviously a lot shorter. So depends what you prefer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden Skyrush an awful lot this year just because of how often I've been to Hershey Park,
Yeah.
especially with Wildcat open now. So I don't know if the little bit of a shake on Hyperion is going to bother me too much.
No, it's smoother than Skyrush from what I remember. I prefer it to Skyrush, if that's anything to go by. And I only rode Skyrush for the first time this year, but I prefer Hyperion. I
Right.
think it's a
Oh,
more complete
okay. All
ride.
right. Well,
So
that's a good comparison point then, I think. So
yeah,
I mean, we're gonna have probably a day and a half, pushing closer to 2 days at Energylandia after we
yep,
leave Legendia, and the second day there is a Saturday, so it may be busy, but the benefit of being there on a Saturday is they're also open till 11 p.m. So it will get dark for a few hours while we're there. I think sunset is around like 8:30, eight
yeah.
thirty
We'll
when I
get
looked at
sort of an
the time.
hour's worth of night rides. I think we'll certainly get some twilight rides going into nighttime. And I think I remember telling you last time I was there. Actually, I got a sort of end of the night ride on Zadra when the fireworks were going off. So it's not like Kings Island where
Yeah,
they stop the rides when they do the fireworks, right? They
yeah,
they just
right.
send the fireworks and let you go, you know. So that was
Yeah.
cool.
All right. So yeah, I mean, even though there's only two parks there, and I think those are the two parks in Poland that everybody talks about, and those are the
Yeah,
rides everybody talks about. But
there's not a
there's
whole lot more to talk about Energylandia, really. I mean, there's a few other rides there. Like so, the SLC, there's the best SLC I've ridden, if that's anything to go by, right? And they've got the
okay.
big Intamin sort of water coaster as well, which is all right. And you do get drenched on
They've got
that,
some
so.
weird stuff.
They have, yeah. And then they've got that rafter. Everyone knows how many family coasters they've got, right? So one of the questions, I suppose, is will they have the new mine train and stuff open? I'm leaning towards no at the moment. It doesn't look like it now. I thought they were teasing it a few weeks back when you sent me that link, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure now.
I haven't heard actually. I don't know if it's open or not. I
No, I
guess
don't. I've got a feeling it won't be, but we might get lucky. We might get lucky.
if it's open, I think maybe we'll ride those two, at least the mine train. But we'll
Yeah.
see what happens when we're there. Maybe they'll surprise us. Um, so I guess from there we're gonna hop on a short plane ride from Poland up to Helsinki. We're gonna
Yeah.
get into Helsinki, and then we're actually gonna drive, and we're gonna go north to south with the parks. So we're gonna do 3 straight days of parks in Poland. We're gonna do Powerland, Sarkaniemi, and then Linnanmäki. And starting with, I think the ride that jumped out to both you and I is Junker, because we've both ridden Monster,
See,
right?
this is another one. Is it Junker or is it Junker? Do you
It's
pronounce the?
it's
Is it a silent J?
it's Junker with
Okay.
a Y. I'm pretty certain.
I need to brush up on my Finnish, clearly. But yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
no,
mean it's basically launched Monster, kind of, right? I mean, a lot of the
yeah,
same
I think
that the
so.
Finnish loop originated there that Monster has.
I've avoided watching a POV of it, so I haven't really seen like the complete layout. But yeah, I've heard people call it my more launch Monster, right? And I enjoyed Monster a lot, and so if that's anything to go by, I'm sure it'll be a pretty good
Same.
ride. And Gerstlauer launches are pretty punchy. So I mean, have you done anything with the Gerstlauer launch yet?
I do like them. I remember the ones that I've really
Oh,
enjoyed.
you would have done Flucht von Novgorod, wouldn't you?
Yes,
Got a
we've
punchy Gerstlauer launch on that.
yep, yep, we've done that one. Schwertis was closed the day that we were at Hunch Park, so we missed that, unfortunately. That's the only
Yeah.
real big ride that we missed on the last trip. But we also went to Tripstrill and got to ride Caracho, which is a smaller
Okay.
one, but it's
Yeah,
still really
yeah.
good. I really enjoyed Caracho.
I imagine the launch will be similar, probably comparable to that. So that's again another rolling launch, but yeah, they're good launches, the Gerstlauer ones, and it looks like a fun layout. So and also that's probably going to be my 500, depending how many I ride at Energylandia. So I'm on like 497 at the moment, I think. So I need kind of 2 at Energylandia, and
Okay.
I'm missing a few at Energylandia, so I can pick up a couple of the crappy rides there, and then
Right.
hopefully line up 500 for Junker. I'll remember that. Silent J.
Yeah, I was gonna ask because I know you're close to a milestone there, and then
Yeah.
depending on how things line up, I should be hitting 850 somewhere in
Okay.
Finland. I think it kind of depends on how many we ride at Energylandia, but so we should both hit a couple milestones along the way here.
Yeah.
Moving further south, well, okay, so Powerland also has the world's northernmost wood coaster with Thunderbird, which
Okay.
is an American Thunder clone. It was actually built
Yeah,
before American Thunder was.
that was the one I
I think.
missed when we went to Six Flags St. Louis. American Thunder was shut. I think the chain had broken or something when we were there last year. So that's the one I didn't get. So and funnily enough, Mike and Brad were saying you'll probably get to the one in Finland first. And I was like, I've got no plans on going to
Well,
Finland anytime soon.
if you use Andy or Bartrek's critical thinking, then you've ridden both, right?
Well, there we go, right? So I can mark that down as 2, clearly.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Well,
But that's
and
what did you say? That's Thunderbird, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's Thunderbird. So now what's interesting is of this entire trip, if you include all of the roller coasters at all of the parks, it's like right around 100 coasters, and there's only 9 wooden ones altogether. That being
Yeah.
one of them. There's not a whole lot of wood coasters in Scandinavia. So, but I mean, I think I think that one should be a pretty good one. I mean, I enjoy American Thunder. I don't think it's like an elite GCI, but it's far from the worst one. It certainly has some good airtime, and I like the compactness of it. So I'm expecting to like Thunderbird as well.
They're
And it's kind of
generally
cool.
pretty consistent, those GCIs, aren't they? I mean,
They
usually,
are.
unless they've got horrendously rough for any reason. I don't know whether the northern climate's going to have been particularly harsh to this one, so that'll be interesting to see if it's running as well as it could be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, generally they're pretty inoffensive, aren't they? They're pretty decent little layouts, so I'm sure it'll be all right. I suppose the
Yeah,
other thing there's that pit special as well, which is the one that they built, which some people thought they were extending Junker at one point. Remember, because they've basically built another Gerstlauer Infinity, the same color, right next to it.
it's the exact same color.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's right
bizarre.
next to it, too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a strange choice. So I think when you approach the park, it looks like just one giant coaster there, but that's because you've got Pitts and Junker right next to each other, basically with exactly the same paint job. So yeah,
Such an
and
odd choice.
it really is, and I think Pitts is meant to be slightly milder. So maybe they built Junker and it was a bit too intense for some people. So they've built Pitts,
Could
which is a
be.
bit more meant to be a bit more floaty, a bit more, I think, a bit more airtime focused, perhaps. But we'll see. We'll see.
It could be. I don't think Pitts has any inversions, so
Yeah, I think you might be right. It's got a weird kind of,
it's got
I
this
can't remember what
weird
they
turn. It
call.
reminds me of the Shambhala turnaround.
Yeah, it's a bit like the ampersand, but not quite, right? It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's a strange looking ride, but yeah,
yeah, very strange. They've got a little dark ride called the Devil's Mine Hotel, a
yeah,
shooting dark ride there, so we'll hopefully get to check that out. The next park heading south is Sarkanyemi, depending on how the
yeah. Again, don't expect
pronounced
me to know
there.
any better than you on that one.
That's all right. On the water in Tampere, there's not really any dark rides that it appears. It looks like there's like a log flume and only a handful of coasters. They've got a skyrocket too. They've got a couple of smaller ones,
Yeah,
but they've got one of those Intamin invert coasters that is very very rare. Not one of the impulses either. It's a
yeah,
continuous circuit. It's got the partially underground barrel roll tornado, which that ride looks really cool to me.
yeah. It's an interesting one that, and like you say, it's pretty rare. I think there are only a couple of these made, right? And I think they're both called Tornado because there's another one at the park in Madrid called Tornado as well, which is an
I
Intamin.
think you're right.
Yeah,
It's
and
green.
then I don't know if they've made many others, right? Because obviously you've got the impulses, you had Volcano, and yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm missing something, but
It
yeah,
may
it
just
looks
be those
interesting that.
two. It may just be those two. I can't think of any more, so I think it could just be those two, perhaps. So yeah, they're the other cool thing about Sarkanyemi, and I don't know, depending on weather and stuff like that, but they have the tower there with the rotating restaurant at the top too. That's
Okay,
right there at the
I didn't know
park. So
that.
that's yeah. So that's something that if time allows, maybe we'll grab a meal up at the top of the tower. So we'll see how things work out with that. But
That'd be good. I imagine
the
the views up there are pretty
the
good because you say it's on the water as well, isn't it? That park, so
yeah, it looks like it's a little peninsula, right?
yeah,
That's kind of out. I don't know if it's a river or a lake there, but certainly nice scenery. So the view should be nice from up there. So
you forgot
maybe we'll get a chance to head up there and check it out.
they've got Zamperla Valera as well. You forgot to mention
Oh,
that.
those wonderful things.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful things.
Yeah. I don't know who ever thought that,
Um,
that trapping people in that cage was a good idea for that ride, but it's not like I'm not going to do it though, right?
I've been on way too many of those. I've been on way too many of those.
Yeah.
I want to say I've been on like 4 or 5.
Oh, really? Well, you've done more than me then. I think I've only done a couple of them. The one at Coney Island was particularly bad.
Coney Islands is bad. I've been on the one at Rye Playland in New York. That one's pretty bad.
Mm.
The one at Flamingo Land, there's one
That's the other
there.
one I've done. Yeah. Yeah, that was the
Canada's
first one I
Wonderland
did.
has an awful one too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just those. I can't remember if there's another one, but yeah, that's don't need to ride any of those. So, but
One and
we'll
done,
do it.
right?
Credit. Yeah, definitely a one and done.
I know.
But rides that are not one and dones, a ride that took the thrilling 32 by storm this past year was Taiga down at Linnanmäki. So
Okay.
that certainly is the highlight of Finland, I think, probably for both of us. And just from an overall trip standpoint, this is one that I mean, I'm looking here at my list here. This is one that is like probably top 5 overall for most anticipated on the entire trip because Taiga looks like a really, really good ride.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. It's certainly they're probably in the top sort of what probably in the top one or two that I'm looking forward to on this trip. To be honest, outside of the ones I've already done at Energylandia, right? It's a lot of people have talked
Oh,
about this
right,
ride
yeah.
for a long time. It's kind of feels like it was kind of the precursor to Velocicoaster, almost kind of a halfway between
Yeah.
a Taron and a Velocicoaster. Sort of taking Taron
Yeah.
to the next level and inspiring Velocicoaster. So yeah, I'm really really excited about riding Tiger.
Well, and Terran is, pretty compact, low to the ground, and it doesn't have any of the really big inversions, right?
Yeah,
Whereas Velocicoaster has some of the big elements and some of the higher up inversions. And like you said, Taiga has bits of both. It's got a little bit of a stall, it's got a little bit of a dive loop, an Immelman type thing. It's got after the first launch is like this weird sort of backwards twisting
yeah,
loop cork
a really
thing that
strange
looks
sort of
really,
outer
really
bank
wonky.
thing. Yeah, it's a good looking
Yeah, and then
ride. It really uses the
it's
terrain as well. So it's built on the side of the hill.
it
So
does.
yeah,
Yeah, it does. It's got that weird outer bank that continues to roll into like a dive loop type thing at the
yeah,
beginning. So, and I think it has one of the barrel rolls at the end, the little barrel rolls towards the
yeah.
end of the
I think
ride.
you're right. Like one of the sort of
So
a bit like Blue Fire type thing, I suppose.
yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking when I first saw it. So I mean, it does kind of look like a marriage of a ride like Terran and Velocicoaster, and that would be a good thing in my opinion. If it
Absolutely. Yeah.
tends to be that. And they've also got one of the old scenic railways there, and there's several on this trip, but this is the first of them, and
Okay.
I I hate to want to even try and pronounce this, but it's Vuorsterata.
Vuoristorata.
Vuorsterata. I have no
Vuoristorata.
idea. I don't know
Yeah.
what it means. I don't know how badly pronounced that is. I mean, just look at my hair from trying to pronounce that. Um, so,
well, well,
but
again,
but
I don't
I've
think you're going to get
I've
much
heard
help
good
from me
things.
on that one either.
No. I've got a stack of my old Ace magazines over there, and I dug back to when they did the here, I'll get it over here. Back in when the heck was this? This was 2012 where they did the Scandinavian Sojourn. This is when Twister Gronelund was like brand new.
Okay.
And there were in the part where they visited Linnanmäki, people had a lot of good things to say about the park as a whole, but also that scenic railway, and this is well before Taiga's time. So certainly people with good things to say about that park. So, and it's right outside of Helsinki proper, so I'm really looking forward to that park as a whole as well.
That's cool. They've also got one of those Intamin Zack spins as well. I
Yeah.
think it might have been the first Zack spin ever built. It's one of the small ones, so that's something I haven't ridden before. I don't know if
Yep.
you were lucky enough to ride one of those before. If you did Green Lantern when it was at Magic Mountain, because I know that was widely thought of as being the worst one. Right? They ruined it somehow, apparently.
I
Yeah.
I was I did ride. I actually rode Green Lantern twice, and I remember liking it the first time I rode it, and then hating
Okay.
it the second time I rode it. So we'll we'll see how that goes. But I think Kiernu is one of the smaller ones, and then the one at Gronelund at the end, which we'll talk to.
Yeah.
That's one of the bigger ones. I think that's
And
the Green Lantern.
I think it is, but I think it runs a little bit better because, again, from what I heard, they added weight to Green Lantern's cars, or they did something to the trains on Green Lantern, which stopped the flipping from working as well. Or that's what people
I
said anyway. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I don't know if that's just a thuzy juice and people making stuff up or what, but um
It could be. What about
Yeah.
have you ridden one of those
All
sky
right.
loops as well? The Mara sky loops with the chain lift that goes
No,
upside down.
no,
So
I
they've got one of
haven't.
those there too. So that could be
Yeah.
interesting. As long as we don't get stuck on it. I saw pictures of someone stuck on one of those the other week. Not that one particularly, but that's not a lift you want to get stuck on. I don't think that one.
No, and it's funny because they have one of those at Hot Magic Springs in
Yep.
Arkansas, and Andy's been on that one. And once I ride this one, aside from me trying to get all the North American wood coasters,
Yeah.
there's really not much of a reason for me to go to that damn park after I've after I've ridden this thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully get to ride that as well. But Linnamaki is just a park that has a lot of wacky stuff. You know, they've
Yeah.
got this really cool Intamin, and then they've got a lot of wacky stuff. They have a couple of dark rides that seem pretty wacky, and they've all got really peculiar names that I didn't even try and translate. They even have a Mac E motion coaster.
Yeah, they're pretty rare, aren't they? I think they might have only made a
I
couple
don't
of
even know
those.
what it is. I don't know what it is. I guess we'll figure it out. But
Yeah, I've got a feeling it's kind of like a big wild mouse. I think I might be imagining that, but yeah. But yeah, that's the last place we're going in Finland, isn't it? And then it's over to Copenhagen for the next stop on the
yeah,
trip.
well, you go home for a day, right?
Yeah, but because I wasn't originally coming on this part of the trip, I had a flight booked from Helsinki back to London, and it actually worked out cheaper for me to just book a new flight back from London to Copenhagen. So I'm going to go home for a night and feed the cat, and don't worry, he's getting fed the rest of the time as well. But but yeah, I go home and check he's not too mad at me before I leave for another 10 days. But yeah, then I'm flying back to Copenhagen and meeting you there the next day. And I think you're thinking of maybe going to Legoland, Billund. Are you still planning on doing that one if you can?
Yeah, that's the plan. And you know, because I've really enjoyed going to the Legolands over the last couple of years. You know, I went to the one in California last year. The one in New York is only a couple hours from me. I went to the one in Florida, 11 years ago when it was pretty new.
Yeah.
So I've been to the three in the US. And this is the original one. And I didn't realize how old this park actually was. Like, I think it dates back to like the 60s. It's an older park.
Was it the
But they
original
also
Legoland?
it is the original. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's the original.
Okay.
So, but they have a number of different things. They have a number of dark ride shooters. They have an Ninjago ride. They have one called the Temple. They
Yeah.
have the one of the flying theater rides, which I think Legoland Florida has one of those now.
Okay.
They've got a drop tower that's also like a walkthrough. So they have a bunch of things that are like non-coaster things
Yeah.
that are pretty cool.
Well, I've
But
never
then
been to a Legoland
they have a
park,
couple
so
of
I wouldn't know. I've heard good things about the Ninjago rides. I've heard that they're pretty cool. So, and I think there's still four coasters there. So there's a few credits to pick up as well there along the way, right? So
there is. I mean, and every one of the Legoland parks has a dragon coaster that has a little
yeah,
bit of a dark ride section before outside. So that's sort of the standard one. A lot of them have the wild mouse, which this one also has. The most unique one here, though, is the Polar Explorer, which has a little bit. It's an Arctic themed ride, from what I understand, and I think it has a little bit of a vertical drop, like a Verbolten or a 13,
oh, okay,
to
like a
it.
drop.
So I don't think it's quite as big as either of those.
I was thinking
Weird
a
thing.
vertical drop at a Legoland park. What? I know what you mean now with the drop track. I was thinking that was a bit much, but yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that'll be fun to discover. And I always enjoy looking at the mini lands too. So we'll see what Legoland is it Billund has to offer in that way.
Yeah, so after Legoland, I'll be flying back in to Copenhagen. I think later that day, right? So you're going on that day. I'm going to fly in later that evening and meet you in Copenhagen, and that's when we're meeting up with the rest of the Coaster Crew guys, right? At the Tivoli Hotel, I
Yeah,
think.
so yeah, so the arrival day for the coaster crew section of the trip is actually the day that I'm going to Legoland.
Yeah,
And I think one or two people might be joining me. So I'm probably going to miss the dinner because the dinner is like earlier in the evening.
yeah. I won't get in
Yeah.
until just after the dinner anyway, so I'll meet you in the evening at the hotel there. But yeah.
Yeah, so then that first day with the trip is a two park day,
Yep.
but it's a long day. We start off at Bakken, which is the world's oldest amusement park. I think it dates back to the 1500s, and then we come back into Copenhagen and go to Tivoli Gardens, which is open until midnight on that particular night. So even though we don't get to Tivoli till 4 p.m., we still have 8 hours there.
Yeah.
So and I don't know if all the rides are open that late. But we'll certainly have time to ride the coasters there. Let's start with Bakken because I know that they have one of the scenic railways as well. I'm not sure if that one runs with the brakeman anymore. That might be one of the ones where they've added like skid brakes to slow it down.
Yeah.
And a couple of dark rides. They have a little mine train. But the one that I know you're really excited for here, and I've heard multiple people say that this is one of the most intense coasters they've ever ridden, is this
Yeah.
into spinning coaster Tornado.
Yeah. It looks pretty crazy. I don't know if you've seen any of the POVs that have been online of people riding it,
I've
but
seen a couple.
it looks like it's nuts, right? It's you could almost say the lift hill's launched. It's still a chain lift, but it's almost like the lift hill's kind of got a sort of hyper speed boost that kind of just throws you into the layout. And
Mhm.
there's also sort of a boost mode function on it where they can kind of make it spin more than usual. So
Oh my
apparently,
god.
if they either know you're a thuzy or if you ask them to put it in boost mode, they'll do something under the car, and it just all hell breaks loose, right? So this is one that a lot of people have been talking about for a while. It's yeah, it looks pretty nuts. So looking forward to that one. But I think as well, Danny, I think you did down. It's not just a scenic railway at Bakken. It's a Rutschebanen, right? So we'll finally be able to find out what a Rutschebanen is.
Well, we get to ride two Rutschebahnens, right? Because
We
there's one
do,
at
yeah.
Bakken, and then there's one at Tivoli too. And the one that's been in the Thrilling 32 is the one at Tivoli, which I
Okay.
don't know if it's bigger, but it's themed to. So people always say that Tivoli Gardens is one of the places that Walt Disney went to when he was coming up with Disneyland, and this
Yeah.
was one of the places that inspired him. And they say that the Matterhorn was inspired after the Rutschebanen at
Yeah.
Tivoli Gardens because it's got a very similar style mountain. So the Rutschebanen at Tivoli Gardens is the one that we've been talking about in the Thrilling 32 for the last couple of years, and is very, very heavily themed, and by most accounts is considered to be the best of the remaining scenic railways in Europe.
Okay. And I suppose
Um,
Rutschebanen probably just means scenic railway, probably in Danish, I reckon, right?
Yeah, I think it's like how what is it, Montaña Rusa is like mountain ride, which
Yeah,
is what
okay.
a coaster is in Spanish. I think it's similar to that.
That makes
Because
sense.
like
That's why there's multiple of them, I guess,
I
right?
think
So
Banen or Bane is like ride or way.
yeah,
So I guess that makes sense.
it all
And
makes
they have a
sense.
couple of cool dark rides at Tivoli. They have the Via Vendetta walkthrough. They have the I'm gonna butcher this De Flyvende Comfort, which I think is themed to a flying suitcase. Um,
Okay.
so that's one of the ones there. And then they have Minen, which is the mine, and that's one of the boat dark rides. So we'll see what those are all about.
I don't know if you're into the flat rides particularly, but I've heard some people say Tivoli's got some decent flat rides too. If you're into that kind of thing, I usually avoid most of them, to be honest. I don't like being spun around too much, which is kind of contrary to me wanting to ride Tornado, right? But spinning coasters, yes. Spinning rides, not so much, right?
Yeah, I'll do the flat rides if there's time, or if there's like a super super unique one. But
Well, there's not a whole lot of
I keep
coasters
joking
there,
about how
right?
many
There's
Vacomas there are on this entire trip. No, there's just the four.
yeah.
So, we've got more Vacomas. There's more Vacomas at Energylandia than there is B&Ms on the entire trip. There's only three B&Ms on the entire trip. And the first one's here, and that's
Yeah.
Daemonen, which is really one of the smallest B&Ms that's ever been built. It's a small little, I think it's just three inversion floorless coaster, but very compact and looks pretty neat.
It reminds me of the sort of stand-up coasters, if you know what I mean. Just the way it looks in terms of its compact nature reminds me of the sort of the original B&M sort of stand-up coasters. But
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a better layout than they are. But yeah,
Yeah, I see
I
that.
think it might be one of the shortest one, maybe the shortest floor list, probably. It's pretty diddy.
I think
So
it probably is, yeah.
yeah. That should be
So
good.
then our next day is another two park trip. And it's two smaller parks. We go to Bon Bon Land and then we finish up at Tivoli Freihaden. And there's only a
Yep,
couple of coasters at each. Tivoli Freihaden used to have four coasters. They used to have the Satori invert, but that was
they
recently torn
did.
out after someone passed away on that a couple of years ago. They both have a
Yeah.
couple of dark rides, a couple of dark ride shooters. But I mean, the one that everyone's going to recognize from either of these two parks is the Hyundai Bruton at Bon Bon Land. Alex, it's the dog fart coaster.
It is the famed dog fart coaster, which you know what, I don't even know what that coaster is, right? It's just a kids ride, isn't it? It's just a meme coaster to say
It's
I've ridden the
yeah,
dog fart
yeah,
coaster,
it's just a
but
little kiddie coaster, and
yeah,
supposedly the entire park is themed like to what, at least in the States, is like very, very inappropriate, gross types of things that are
yeah,
what generally more accepted over there. The entire park is themed this way with characters doing all sorts of bodily functions and things.
yeah.
So
It looks like a
yeah, dog
weird place, that Bon Bon Land. But it's also got the first ever Eurofighter as well, hasn't it? So I suppose that's probably the more thrilling ride there to
yes,
look
it
forward
does.
to, is the Vildsvinnet, which is yeah, it was the first Eurofighter. So I think it's only got the one inversion on
Yep.
that, but that'd be interesting to ride that.
It should be, especially knowing that, earlier in the trip and then a little bit later in the trip we get some of the newer Eurofighters and some of the Infinity coasters. It'll be interesting to have the original kind of, jammed in the middle here.
Yeah,
Um
and it's a weird layout. It's not compact like the other Eurofighters. I don't think it's slightly more of a spread out layout. If anything, it's as if they were building their sort of bobsled coasters, their sort of wild mouse style bobsled coasters, and kind of just scaled that up, and that was kind of the genesis of what became the Eurofighter, right? So it's yeah, slightly different layout. Interesting little ride that. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to kind of have those things there. Sort of a little bit of a lower, slower pace day, I think, which is probably appropriate after a midnight close at Tivoli Gardens. So
yeah. Well,
and
there's
then
quite a
and then we
chunk of
start
travel
doing just one
between those
more day.
parks too. I think, aren't there? There's about 3 hours
There
between those
is.
two parks, so we'll be on the road a little bit that day.
And take a little bit of a nap on the bus or something. um So then we start a stretch of a couple of days where we're only doing one park. The next day is Jers Summerland,
Yep.
which has a number of coasters that are interesting to me. They have two log flumes, which is interesting. But in the coaster department, they have one of the Gerslauer bobsled style, or they call it the bobsled model,
Yeah.
Thor's Hammer. They have one of the Intamin tire launch coasters, Juwelen, which translates to the jewel in English.
Okay.
Uh, and then, of course, the Intamin Megalite Piraten, which is the pirate. That one's a little bit easier for those of us that speak English. But I mean that to me is another one that's one of the coasters that could be right there, in the top five for the entire trip.
Yeah, well, I've not ridden one of the megalites before, but if it's from what I hear, they're pretty punchy rides, right? And I really liked the Mac version of the megalite, the Alpina Blitz, which is a very similar layout but Mac's take on it. And from what everyone says, the Intamin ones are better. So if it is, it's going to be, a very good ride. That so yeah. Hopefully, I'm hoping it's mini expedition G-force. That would be perfect.
Uh, that would be nice. That would be
Yeah,
nice. I mean, we both enjoy Expedition GeForce quite a bit. So that would be very nice if that's what it ended up being.
yeah,
Should we move on to the next day, which is Far Up Summerland? They have a couple of coasters that are on my list. They have one of the earlier Eurofighter style rides, Line It, which translates
hmm
to lightning. They have one of the few SNS wood coasters, Falcon, and then one of the newer Vekoma coasters, Phoenix, which is almost brand spanking new, right?
yeah. That looks again, it's kind of a bit of a follow on to Let Coaster. I think some people were hoping it was going to be as intense, but by all accounts, it's a bit more. It's a bit of a less intense ride than Let Coaster, but it certainly looks again like another really interesting, varied layout. Right, it's got some funky inversions. It's got a weird sort of stall
Yeah.
stall loop type thing. Um, yeah, again, it's just a really interesting ride. I think Vekoma are doing a lot of creative things these days.
What are those things harness wise? Like, do they have the lap bar with the vest?
Yeah, they do. So think sort of the Intamin. Imagine like Pantheon's restraints on like the new Intamin restraints over the shoulder, sort of with the lap
Okay.
bar, but just with a vest attached. So,
Okay.
and the vest doesn't sort of come down on you quite as much as the B&M ones. It doesn't feel like it sort of locks or gets tight on you like sometimes like the Wing Coaster ones do. Um,
Right.
Obviously it'd be better with no vest. I mean, have you ridden any of the sort of boomerangs or the Vekomas that have been fitted with the newer trains?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably quite
Yep.
similar to those, I'd imagine. Some of them have got like the sort of soft foam ones, and one of them had them, they were more like fabric. So there's a couple of different types of vests they do as well. But yeah, they're not uncomfortable and they don't ruin the airtime. So that's the main thing, right?
Okay. That is the main thing. So I'm looking forward to Phoenix, quite frankly, almost as much as Lech Coaster, and maybe even more than Abysses, just based on what you've told me
Yeah.
about those rides. I think I probably anticipated somewhere in the middle of those two.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll
think
we'll
that's
see
fair.
we'll see what that's like. Um, the line it, which isn't really a year. It's not a traditional looking Eurofighter. I think it probably still falls in that classification, but it's got more of a. It's almost like a double out and back type of layout.
Yeah,
It's got a couple of air, a couple of inversions. What do you think of that one?
I think it's got the slightly different trains as well. So I think is it Daredevil Dive
It's
down
got
at
the
Georgia
Daredevil
that's got
dive
the
trains.
yeah the
I
slightly pointy ones. I think the three rows of two rather than the usual
Yep.
four wide Eurofighter ones. And again, I've ridden something quite similar probably in Anubis, which again is another Gerstlauer with those trains, which is another launched one. So I imagine again, like the others, it'll probably have a pretty nice punchy launch on it, and then some fairly sharp airtime moments, and then it'll probably die somewhere along the line after the mid course, like, like most of them do as well. But yeah, from what I've seen, again, it looks like a pretty decent ride. I think the cars look pretty cool. I think that might be the one where they're like shaped like logs, so it looks like a sort of log car, maybe. I don't know if I'm imagining that, but yeah, should be a good ride.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're working through we're working through the delay here, so bear with it. We're across 5 time zones, so,
I know.
so
Technical
all right.
difficulties.
So then we take an overnight ferry
Yep.
from Denmark. It's a 9 hour ferry ride up to Oslo, Norway, and we go right to Tusenfryd, which could potentially be. This is where we start to get into the neighborhood, depending on what rides we miss along the way, if any. This is where I'll be closing in on the 900 mark.
Okay.
So it's possible that this could be the place that I hit 900 at. And there's a couple of interesting coasters here. So they've got a dark ride called Thor's Hammer, not to be confused with the roller coaster from a few days earlier. But the ones that stick out to me here are they've got a rare Vekoma wood coaster, Thunder Coaster, which I've heard good and bad things about. Robin Hood, which turned into Untamed, was one of those. Loup Garou at Wallaby, Belgium, is a Vekoma wood coaster. That one's still standing.
Did you
So
ride
there's
that
only
one?
yes, I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was forceful. It was just rough. So this might be similar, I think. But the two rides that I think really stand out when you look at this lineup are Speed Monster, which is the Intamin launch coaster. Where for those of you who are big Hershey Park fans over here in the States, the Norwegian loop on Fahrenheit that gets its name from Speed Monster because that's where it originated. And it's interesting because the escalator to get into the park from the main entrance goes right through that loop. So
Okay.
if you could imagine a pair of escalators going right through the first pair of inversions on Fahrenheit, that's what Speed Monster has to start the ride right after its launch. So it's almost like Speed Monster is sort of it's almost like the love child of Storm Runner and Fahrenheit.
I was thinking the
for the
same
Hershey
as you
Park
were
people.
talking about it. I was thinking it sounds like you're talking about Fahrenheit, but it also sounds like you're talking about Storm Run. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's almost a cross between the two.
and
So
again,
that's
it's quite a quirky little layout from what I've seen. I don't think it's the longest of rides, but again, it looks like it packs a bit of a punch. So, is it hydraulic launch or is it one of the?
I believe so. I think
Yeah,
it's hydraulic, and it's got I think it's got three inversions. It's got the two with the Norwegian loop, and then it's got an airtime hill that I think goes between it, and then it's got a couple of like the Expedition G-Force style crossover hills, and then it's got a corkscrew at the end before it turns into the brake. So it's certainly not the longest of rides, but it looks like it could be a pretty darn good one to
yeah.
me, especially if that launch delivers.
It,
Um,
it feels like kind of one a bit of a forgotten sort of Intamin launch coaster, just by proxy of where it is. Right, it's so far up there. Not that many people probably get up to Tusenfryd, right? And I remember seeing sort of POVs of it before and thinking, what is that ride? You know, it's one of those ones that I hadn't even heard about until a couple of years ago. I was like, that looks pretty cool. So yeah,
Yeah, I agree. It looks really cool, and perhaps one of the newest coasters on this entire trip just opened a couple of months ago is
yeah,
a wait for this a Gerstlauer inverted launch shuttle coaster that is a complete circuit.
yeah. It's
So this
they've
is
kind of covered every base with
it's
that, haven't they?
Storm the Dragon. They really have. So this is Storm the Dragon Legend, and I've seen the animation. I haven't even watched the real POV of this, but it's an inverted launch coaster that does like the swing launch to get started, but then eventually it completes a circuit, kind of like the Skyrocket 2s, but
Yeah.
it's not a layout anything like that. It's got its own little layout. So this is one of those rides that to me, because it's brand new and like nobody's ridden it and there's no hype around it, this is one of those rides that could be like super big sleeper hit of the trip, or it could just be a big nothing burger, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, I've said it a few times already. I mean, the Gerstlauer launches I've done have all been pretty good. So if the launches are punchy, and again, I think it might be the first invert Gerstlauer have built. They may have done a family invert, but it's certainly the first more extreme invert they've built. So that's something interesting in
Yeah.
itself. And Gerstlauer have always got kind of funky element shaping, right? And this looks no different. I don't know if it's an Immelman or something it goes up into out of the launch, but it doesn't look normal. You know, it certainly looks like a
Yeah.
Gerstlauer.
No, it's not something you could ever build in Roller Coaster Tycoon with the special elements that are available to you.
Yeah,
It's got all sorts of weird twists and turns, and it's got like an airtime hill hidden in there too,
yeah.
which is really odd. You know, there's not many inverts that can give you a speed airtime hill, but this one seems to have one in it.
Well,
So
it feels like it's the first launched. If I'm not wrong, it'd be the first launched invert since or with a full layout since Volcano, right? So maybe they're trying to catch the eye of King's Dominion, see if it would be a worthy
maybe
successor.
you might be on something. Well, and there was the survey last week that people were talking about from Canada's Wonderland where they
Yeah,
teased a volcano concept. So
I
maybe
think
they're looking Gerslauer's way for that.
that's so funny. That made me laugh so much. It's if Canada's Wonderland build Volcano. I know we're getting off topic, but if Canada's Wonderland build a volcano replacement, King's Dominion fans are going to be crying.
They could, right? All right, so moving on. This is where we go into Sweden, and this is the last country on the trip here. We have 2 days. Oh, that's four. 2 days at Liseberg in Gothenburg, and they're long days. They're both 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. So we'll have plenty of time, hopefully, to get lots and lots of rides on the big rides here. And there's they do have a sky roller here, so that's a flat ride that might be of interest. They've got a log flume, they've got a walk through and a dark ride. But I mean, they've got perhaps, this is widely considered to be one of the better parks in Europe, and they've
Yep.
certainly, while not a large collection at only 7 roller coasters, it's one of the most famous. They just built a family boomerang called Luna, which has gotten good reviews. Valkyria, the B&M dive coaster, which is the second of three B&Ms on the trip, and then the big three, if you will, the rides that we've seen in the Thrilling 32. What the hell is Lisa Bergbonnen? We'll find out. We'll find out what the hell Lisa Bergbonnen is. So then the two big ones here, and we talked about how there's a marked lack of wood coasters on this trip, but there's a couple of big ones towards the end here. So we've got Balder, the Intamin plug-in playing ERT at Wildcats Revenge last week. We were joking around, and he was like, "I can't wait to ride Balder and brag about how much better than El Toro it is."
Yeah. Well, we'll see, right? I mean, I don't think Boulder looks all that great from when I've seen stuff of it before. It looks all right. It's one of the smaller
It
scale,
looks
right? It's the
slow
smallest of
with
the
a lot
prefabs.
of like Magnum airtime hills. So
Yeah,
it's like what's going to outweigh the other? Is the airtime from the little hills going to outweigh the fact that maybe it doesn't go quite as fast as some of the others, or is it going to be too slow and the airtime's not going to be worth it? I don't know. It could go either way for me.
yeah. It's interesting because I generally prefer like more sustained airtime. So if it's kind of more little pops, then I don't know. I'm sure it'll be a good ride. And again, I don't want to shit on it before I've ridden it, right? But it's
Yeah.
yeah, I'm interested to ride it because it's placed well in the Wood Coaster rankings before, right? In fact, it's been a bit of a strange one. It's jumped around the Thrilling 32 quite a lot, hasn't it? It's placed really well, and then it's kind of dropped down again, and then jumped back up. So I think there's
Yeah.
kind of quite a lot of mixed opinions out there on this ride. So yeah, be
I
interesting
think there is.
to see what it really is like, right?
It looks like the first part of the ride has some of the bigger hills and the speed where you'll get the sustained air time, and then towards the end you get some of the more aggressive pops.
Yeah,
Maybe on a ride like a Storm Chaser or an Airy Force One, or like a of even a Steel Vengeance or an Untamed, where you've got the little yeets at the
the little
end, right?
Yeats.
The little yeets at the end. So we'll find out what Balder is all about. And then on the steel side, I mean, a staple of the Thrilling 32, and personally in my top three or four most anticipated steel coasters of the trip is Helix,
Yeah.
which I've heard is it looks like it could be the outlier of like these mock launch coasters. Blue Fire is a nice ride, but it's not super intense. Copperhead Strike is a nice ride, but it's got its intense moments, but it's not fully intense all the way through. But Helix to me looks like it's got some good speed, some big inversions, some pretty aggressive inversions, but it's got a couple of really big airtime hills too, and it uses the terrain really nicely. So to me, Helix is one of those rides that I'm cautiously optimistic could really be one of those really really memorable rides.
Yeah, well, again, it's another one. A lot of people that ride it come back singing its praises, right? It's and
Yeah.
another one that's placed well in the rankings some years, and then seems to have dropped away a little bit, and come back. So yeah, I don't expect that speed to come from the launches, is what I hear, right? Because I was chatting to someone the other day actually. It was just because I haven't ridden Copperhead. What was the other one you mentioned as well? Blue Fire, wasn't it? So
Yeah, Blue Fire.
and I suppose the other one I've ridden is Icon as well. And yeah, the criticism a lot with those Mac coasters is that the launches aren't up to much. And I think Helix is probably pretty similar, but the rest of the layout, like you say, it looks like because it uses the terrain, it doesn't need the launches to give it that speed. It looks like it does pick up some good speed as it goes down the hill. Looks like it's got some pretty strong airtime moments. Like you say, a couple of sort of quite unique inversions as well. So yeah,
It's one of those that it's like I don't know if I'm gonna love this ride or think it's overrated, but I can't wait to find out for myself.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
those.
It is. It's another one
So
that just intrigues me more than anything. It's like right, it's kind of more
yeah,
like, is it as good as people say? I want to know if it's as good as some people say, and yeah, whether it is or not, I'll accept either way.
yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. So we're in the home stretch now. The
We are.
next day, we make a quick stop at Skara Summerland, which just a couple of coasters here, a couple of small ones, but they have the that weird SNS free fly. And if you don't know what the heck this thing is, you have to look it up. It's Tranan, Tranan. It's, think of like the Aero suspended coaster, but you're out on the wings of a bird, right? And then the track does what a flying coaster does, where it can do half barrel rolls, and the cars stay upright, but they also swing as the track is going above and below you. It's the only one of its kind, and I think some folks convinced him to put this on the itinerary just so we could go ride this ride, because it's literally on the way to Colmartin.
Yeah. I did this park wasn't even on my radar at all, to be honest. I didn't even know what it was, where it was. And then when you were like, oh yeah, that's on the trip, I was like, oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that weird coaster somewhere before, but I didn't know that's where it was or anything. So yeah.
Yeah, this is one where I knew what the ride was, and I had no idea what park it was at. And that's
Yeah.
very, I mean, many people know that's very unusual for me. I knew what the ride was, and I was like, oh, what the hell park is that at? I
Yeah.
had to look it up. So from there, now the next, this is interesting. We're going to Colmartin to finish that day off, and I think there's ERT on Wildfire. We're starting at Colmartin the next morning, and then we're
Yeah.
going up the road to Gronelund and finishing at Gronelund that evening, because Gronelund has like a split schedule where you can do the first 6 hours or the last 6 hours. So I mean, Colmartin is mostly a zoo, right? With a couple of rides, two junior coasters, and then perhaps one of, if not the most anticipated ride on the entire trip for both of us, big RMC wood coaster Wildfire, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is one that is supposed to be one of the best in the world, and we're going to find out.
Certainly one of the most picturesque looking coasters out there, right? It looks fantastic, sort of built up on the side of a mountain. It's yeah, I've wanted to get to this one for a long time, ever since I knew about it. And it's rare now because, you know, with Lightning Rod now being a steel coaster, there's not many of these topper tracks left. And with Goliath being kind of a plug and play, it's really only this and Outlaw Run that are kind of real sort of custom terrain type RMC topper track wooden coasters, right? And yeah, I think this has got the potential to be a pretty special ride, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And what strikes me about Wildfire, looking at it, is just how long it is.
Mm,
And sometimes that tends to not always be such a good thing, because they tend to lose their speed. And Wildfire looks like it loses its speed a little bit towards the end of the ride, because I think the station is up a little bit higher, so it's got
yeah,
to get back up the hill, and it does use the terrain. But it looks like just the very last hill and turn that looked to slow down a little bit. So honestly, if the first 7/8 of this ride are as amazing as it looks and as everyone says it is, one little hill and turn into the brake run is not going to make this ride, to be honest. You know, putting this in the context of just wood coasters like Outlaw Run and Lightning Rod, when it was fully a wood coaster, and Goliath, the other RMC topper track wood coasters.
yeah,
I think there is no question in my mind that this one needs to be better than all of those. Otherwise, I don't think it lives up to the expectation, just because it's so much longer and it has so many more elements than all of those other ones. And quite
yeah,
frankly, it's bigger than all of them. So, it really should be, stats do not always make or break a coaster. But in this case, this is one where the stats indicate that, yeah, everything statistically says that this ride should be the best of the RMC topper tracks. Now, I don't know where that puts it on an overall wood list. I'm not saying we have a voyage killer here or anything, but I mean, Outlaw Run and Lightning Rod for me are right on the edge of my top 10 wood coaster list. So I am fully expecting this to be a top 10 wood coaster for me at
yeah.
minimum.
I think I haven't ridden Lightning Rod, but I've got Outlaw Run, certainly a top five wood coaster for me. I think it's still hanging on in there around the top five. And the one criticism I kind of had of Outlaw Run when I got off, it was, wow, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a bit short, isn't it? It's feels like it could stand to be a bit longer. So like you say, if Wildfire's got kind of the same sort of pacing and feel as an outlaw run, but it kind of delivers a little bit more ride length, even if the end of that is potentially a little bit meandery. Then yeah, it's certainly got potential to be a top 5 wood coaster for me. I would imagine. Not to put too much pressure on it, but yeah, that feels like where it should be aiming to be.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So as we wrap up with our last day, we mentioned Grona Lund is the last park we're
Yeah,
going here. Obviously with the incident that happened a couple weeks ago, Jetline will probably be down for us, so we won't get to ride Jetline. The word on the street is that the rest of the park has been cleared to open. They've gone through their inspections and been cleared to reopen the rest of the park. So, we've got a couple of dark rides. There's a water ride. We've got some kiddie coasters. We've got Insane, the Zach spin that we talked about a
yep,
little bit earlier that supposedly runs really, really nicely. We've got a good wood coaster in Twister. I always like the little gravity groups like Oscar and Wooden Warrior, Switchback, Rorosaurus. This is in the same family, so I'm really
yeah,
expecting
similar
to
sort
like
of
that.
scale to those, I think.
And then the two things that I think are really interesting for me here, obviously Monster, the B&M invert, the last of the B&Ms there, the compact B&M invert. So that should be really, really fun. But maybe the drop ride and flat ride that we're most looking forward to here is this Icaros,
Yep.
the tilting drop tower, in Sweden, right there on the water. I mean, that could be one of the most interesting rides on the trip in
Yeah,
terms of
it's the
non-coasters.
Falcons. It's the Falcons Fury style tilt, isn't it? The same as the ones down in Busch Gardens, Tampa. So it's got that same tilt system to it with the Intamin drop tower. So yeah, I've not done one of those before. So and yeah, drop towers I used to avoid drop towers. They still, I don't know, they freak me out sometimes, drop towers. But I've got more used to them over the last few years. So yeah, I will give that one a go. I mean, monsters. I don't know how they squeezed that B&M invert in there because by all accounts, Groenland's a pretty compact park.
Yeah, so Grona Lund should be a good park to end it on. So I don't know. We only have like a minute left before we get kicked off of Zoom here. I'm
We
looking
do.
forward to all those things we talked about. Liseberg and Tivoli, probably the two parks I'm most looking forward to. Wildfire and Balder, probably the two wood coasters with Rutschebahn in third, and then Zadra, Taiga, Helix, and then maybe Lek and Pirat. I don't know. There's so many good steel coasters. I can't wait to ride them all.
Well, there are. The good
What are
thing
you
is
most looking
you
forward
don't have to
to?
really put them in an order, right? I'm looking forward to all of it, man. I mean, Tiger, Wildfire, they're kind of the
Yeah.
standouts. I mean, Helix, Boulder. I can't wait to get back on Zadra. That's and I'm quite keen to see what you think of Zadra as well because I've been bigging it up for the last couple of years. I think it should be higher in the Thrill and 32, and hopefully
Well,
it'll be
and
better
we'll
next year.
see because now I've just ridden Wildcat and Airy Force One recently, so putting Zadra and Wildfire right after those, I can't wait to
Yeah,
compare all those. So
no, it'll be a good time, man. It'll be a good time.
it will be. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. We're about to get kicked out, so look for the updates on social media from both of us. We'll be posting
Yeah,
lots.
good stuff.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Until next time.